is still 32B. The obligation of the, Mr. Speaker, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is develop and regularly update, integrate database, facilitate the timely issuance or renewal of passports and processing of any documents, Mr. Speaker. Senator Dr. Irungu Kangata has highlighted, Mr. Speaker, has indicated that Kenyans are suffering, Mr. Speaker. When you look at the...
Senator Matangi.
Mr. Speaker, I had sought to catch your eye a bit earlier when my good friend, the Senator for Nandi, was at that point where he's saying that in the Hustler government, they are working very hard to make sure that opportunities are found. And Mr. Speaker, I wanted the Senator to clarify, are they, or is he, and they, as he says, running another government other than the government that we know? Because I've heard them calling themselves the Hustler movement, and which is okay. But a Hustler government, Mr. Speaker, there is only one government in this country. Unless he's talking about one that we don't know, but Mr. Speaker, but is he in order? The government that is there now is the government of the people of Kenya, formed by the Jubilee Party, of which the Senator for Nandi is a member of Jubilee. Mr. Speaker, including all the hustlers he has been mentioning here, all members of the Jubilee Party, Mr. Speaker, until such a time, after 2022 in August, then if for any one reason the Senator for Nandi may find himself in a government, then that time they could decide to brand it any name, including what he's saying, but it is only until then, and only if it happens. So for the time being, Mr. Speaker, the government of Kenya is by the people of Kenya, for the people of Kenya, by the Jubilee Party, Mr. Speaker. And the government now is a people's government, not a hustler's government.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know why the majority whip, I don't know why the majority whip decided to be selective in raising that issue. Yet I had praised the same government that they have organized evacuation flights. But I'm saying, let me make it better for him that in the future of the Hustler government, of Mama Mboga government, we will be willing to work with Kenyans from diaspora because we know there are unique challenges. I'm not challenging in any way that there is no government in place. We have a government, whether it is functional or dysfunctional, but we have government that is running the affairs of the state as at now. So I want to assure my majority whip that all is well, the government is intact, and it is noted. But I can also welcome him to the future government of the hustlers and all Kenyans and the Mama Mbogas. So I really, and we will really need his expertise when time comes to form the hustlers government, Mr. Speaker. So I just wanted to correct, I'm saying in future, I didn't say there is no government that is existing. There is a government that is working at the moment, and Kenyans can decide on that. Mr. Speaker, secondly, and I want to Senate Majority Whip, Senator Kimani Wamatangi, who is a good friend of mine, and of course we have special relationship, he knows how, is that most of the people we found, or whenever you interact, come from East Kiambu County. So I would expect Senator Kimani Wamatangi to be lauding one of his members for being a hard worker by bringing such legislative interventions that will assist majority of them who come from Kiambu County. And I hope to listen to his submissions later, because most of the Kenyans who live abroad come from Kiambu County. And that is why we are working with him closely to ensure this amendment is passed and assist all Kenyans, including those who come from Kiambu County. Mr. Speaker, I was just, because in the interest of time, and I know quite a number of colleagues would want to commend, Mr. Speaker, another obligation that has been given to the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign Affairs and the Diaspora's desk is facilitate the timely issuance or renewal of passport. Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge that all Kenyans who are living abroad is renewal of passport. is renewal of passport. We were there, every Kenyan who lives abroad, when this, the issue of Huduma started, Mr. Speaker. All Kenyans who are living in abroad, you meet, they call you, they WhatsApp you, they tell you, Mheshimiwa, we are unable to register the Huduma card number. We want, when such programs are rolled, what is the role of the diaspora community? Why don't you use Kenyans associations that are there in diaspora community, Mr. Speaker? We have Kenyan associations across the world, even in Africa here. You go to Tanzania, you will get a Kenyan association. You go to Addis Ababa, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, the renewal of passport continue to be a challenge. Why don't we devolve, but not devolve in quotes, devolve to those embassies? And also consular, why don't they work with associations of Kenyans? You are told Kenyans in some states in America fly 3 to 4 hours to go and renew a passport. Why don't we use the online renewal process, Mr. Speaker? Why don't these staff that are sitting pretty somewhere in Washington, D.C., why don't they take a flight and go maybe somewhere in Seattle, go somewhere in Atlanta, maybe once a week, and sit there and tell Kenyans, we are going to be in this state, and cluster them in particular countries? The same thing even in Britain, Mr. Speaker. Anywhere, even in France, in Dubai, in India, and many other places, Mr. Speaker. And we have seen the influx of the Pakistanis in the country, Mr. Speaker, but we hope the government will be able to handle that issue in a more humane way, and of course within the framework that is provided by the law. So even Kenyans in abroad, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, you get a child, you get a child abroad, the parents are Kenyans, that child reaches 18 years, how do they access the identity card? Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure also getting identity card, ID card, getting birth certificate, getting death certificate, Mr. Speaker. Kenyans living in diaspora, Mr. Speaker, must. And I know there are a number of people from Nyamira and the Kisii region. Most of them, when you work, they have even serious associations across the world. How do they access those important documents, Mr. Speaker? And I can see my chairman of Justice Legal Affairs and the Nyamira Senator, Senator Okongo Mugeni, is nodding in agreement. And I will be sitting down to listen to his submissions later, Mr. Speaker. And then, Mr. Speaker, develop a framework for reintegration of returnees upon in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Even, Mr. Speaker, in other countries like UK, whenever you are convicted, you are being told where would you want to serve your service, prison service. In other countries, they don't allow their citizens to serve in the other country, Mr. Speaker. They return you, you come and serve your prison sentence, then you go back home. Mr. Speaker, we need to see our process, we can reintegrate. You find other Kenyans have stayed 30 years, 20 years. When they come back here, they get what we call culture shock. So how do we reintegrate so that they don't feel lonely, so that they feel they are part of Kenya? How do we retap? Because some of the training they got there, sometimes how do we reintegrate them to the public service? Not only social life. How do we reintegrate them, Mr. Speaker? And a number of these people go there to hustle. They go abroad to hustle and look for something. And we know of colleagues even who have gone abroad and have come back to be leaders, Mr. Speaker. Like Senator Susan Kiiga, who is the senator of Nakuru, number of leaders who have been elected by Kenyans. So I want to encourage Kenyans who live in diaspora that they have a role and stake to play in the country. Even they can come back and run for these offices, Mr. Speaker. We even had a presidential candidate, although he disappeared after 2017 general election, I can't recall his name, who was also coming from diaspora and was running. Mr. Speaker, another obligation is nominate recipients of the Presidential Distinct Service Award for Kenyans living abroad. Mr. Speaker, when you sit with those people, you see the hard work they are putting in place, Mr. Speaker. Why should we give Kideri man an award for standing with Kideri to vote? Yet we cannot give Kenyans who have worked hard, Mr. Speaker. We need to be a country of serious people, Mr. Speaker. I know a number of colleagues here who have generated bills, have generated motions, yet they have not even received the award. And I want to congratulate senators who are going to receive that award, Mr. Speaker. Yours not included, yours truly not included. But why would we give a Kideri man holding some Kideri on the line voting and leave Kenyans who are workers, Mr. Speaker? We have Kenyans who are distinguished academicians, Mr. Speaker, abroad, Mr. Speaker, who are leading serious institutions, who are doing unique and working hard, Mr. Speaker, in those countries, Mr. Speaker. Why don't they receive the presidential award that they are awarding to any other Kenyans, Mr. Speaker? We have distinguished, even the famous Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Some of us have read his books. He has been a linguist and written a lot of literature, Mr. Speaker. Professor Makao Mutua, although he is more of a politician as a distinguished academician, Mr. Speaker, I'll be cautious. But we have a number of them, Mr. Speaker, even Miguna, Mr. Speaker. So there are a number of Kenyans who are distinguishing themselves in those foreign countries, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I only have 2 points, then I can conclude. Then I've talked about returnees and reintegration to the country, Mr. Speaker. And also, I forgot, Mr. Speaker, also, apart from ensuring they get renewal of passports, renewal of ID cards, Huduma number, Mr. Speaker, we should also allow Kenyans living abroad to access and be part of NHIF, Mr. Speaker, to get that document. We should also allow them to be part of NSSF so that they can be saving those NSSF National Social Security Fund insurance, Mr. Speaker. We should allow access to such government, Mr. Speaker. And also, Mr. Speaker, although the Ministry of Education has been doing this, is also verification of their documents, academic documents, Mr. Speaker. We are aware even leaders in this country, Mr. Speaker, have appeared 1 week and they have gotten a PhD in some funny universities abroad. We must put in place, Mr. Speaker, and these are Kenyans. We know them by name. We don't want to name them here. But they go 1 week, they get some funny and registered universities abroad. They come here, somebody goes there 1 week or 2 months, you hear somebody is called doctor. We need people who have gone to school like Dr. Musuruve Inima, Mr. Speaker, who is representing people living with disabilities in this house, Mr. Speaker. We need such people who have read and eaten the books, Mr. Speaker. So I think it is very important that the diaspora desk includes also, and also, Mr. Speaker, some of our children and colleagues' children are studying abroad. How do we ensure we come and update their academic documents so that they are be able to apply for jobs in the country, to feel reintegrated, Mr. Speaker? How do we ensure, I know Ministry of Education is doing that, but we need efficiency and effectiveness because we have our children who are studying abroad, our brothers and sisters. We want them when they come with those degrees, Mr. Speaker. When they are valid, they are allowed to be valid and to work. When they are not valid, they also be prosecuted for forgery and fraud, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another issue is the voluntary service. The Cabinet, that is 32F, this is the last one. The Cabinet Secretary shall, in consultation with relevant Kenyan mission, promote the establishment of voluntary service schemes for Kenyans living abroad, Mr. Speaker. We also, yesterday, we were debating disaster management risk bill. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we should, in all honesty and fairness, Mr. Speaker, we should harmonize how we can let Kenyans living abroad volunteer in assisting the country, in ensuring they can even, and I have seen we are using a lot of, and I wish the chair of national security, by the goodness, majority whip is here. I wish we could be able to cut down on the resources we use to run our embassies, our foreign service, Mr. Speaker. As we talk today, and I dare to say this, our foreign embassies is bastions of tribalism and nepotism, Mr. Speaker. You go to some of these embassies, Mr. Speaker, you get people speaking one language. They come from one region. They have turned themselves into bastions of nepotism, of tribalism, Mr. Speaker. They are abroad. And the money that we use to run those embassies and consulate, Mr. Speaker, is a lot of money to the taxpayer of Kenyans. Why don't we allow Kenyans who are staying abroad to volunteer and work in those embassies and give them the stipend? The way the Public Service Commission wanted to start in the country, where you are just giving stipend, Mr. Speaker. So even as we continue, we must cut how to cut the expenses that we run for the embassies that we have across the country, Mr. Speaker, and other consulates that we have across the country. But we must, and I want to say this, we must reform the foreign service, especially our embassies, Mr. Speaker. Our embassies are a bastion of tribalism. And they are spending over mercy and nepotism, Mr. Speaker. And it is good that the National Security and Foreign Relations Committee must look into this issue. The way the appointment of our embassy staff, ambassadors and embassies, Mr. Speaker, is riddled with a lot of craft and of course, nepotism, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the last part is 32G. Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, associations of Kenya living abroad, I had alluded to this in my earlier beginning of the submissions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are so many Kenyan associations, Mr. Speaker. We went there, and I'm happy. Most of the Kenyan associations abroad are not tribal associations that we used to have in university, Mr. Speaker. I don't know, in university we used to have a lot of tribal associations. Some of us were champions then, but we have seen the light. We are now very good Kenyans and we appreciate Kenyans. But when you go to our universities, Mr. Speaker, and I want to challenge the Kenyan universities, why don't they see a way of ensuring we don't have what we call tribal associations in the university, Mr. Speaker? I'm happy whenever you travel around the world, the globe, because these are global citizens, Mr. Speaker. I am happy whenever you travel, you meet Kenyans from all tribes forming one association. You meet Kenyans communing in one association. You meet Kenyans even having these praying in the same church. Mr. Speaker, these associations, and that is why I was talking about cutting down expenses, and I hope the Minister of Foreign Affairs is watching this, or Ministry of Foreign Affairs are watching this. Why don't we use Kenyan associations to get the documented and undocumented Kenyans and get the data of Kenyans that are living abroad? If they are living in UK, for example, United Kingdom, if they are living in USA, if they are living in Brazil, why don't they use Kenyan associations as an avenue of, one, investment, number two, of ensuring that we track the number of Kenyans that we have, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another collaborate, of course, we have discussed about investment. Mr. Speaker, this senator's desk, the challenge we went there, Mr. Speaker, and the stories we had there is that interesting. And I want to ask Kenyans who have family and friends abroad. The biggest challenge that Kenyans living abroad is, one, they send back to the money for their brothers and sisters or friends to invest for them. When they come back, they get zero. They get nothing. So I think Kenyans should also be good people. If you have, I wish Kenyans would understand that Kenyans live abroad, really work hard. They don't even sleep. They sleep 2 hours, 3 hours, they go to another job. But somebody somewhere seated in Kenya, the brother or the sister sends them back here money. They just go and take a picture of somebody's house and tell the brother or sister, your house is complete. When they come to the village to see vitu ni different kwa ground, Mr. Speaker. So we must also, how do we assist Kenyans so that we safeguard their investments? The diaspora, these are hustlers. These are people working hard there, Mr. Speaker. These are people who are doing manual jobs, those jobs of washing dishes, Mr. Speaker. Those waiters, waiteresses in those foreign, the ones who are living in Saudi Arabia are working as housemaids, Mr. Speaker, house servants. Let me call them house managers, because that is, it's not good to call them housemaids, Mr. Speaker. They are working really very hard, Mr. Speaker. This diaspora desk, Mr. Speaker, we need to ask that the investment of Kenyans sending them back for invest in the country, how do we safeguard them, Mr. Speaker, so that relatives cannot con them? We have seen even media have been running these stories where somebody has sent millions of shillings to buy a house, to buy land. When they come back, those things do not exist, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, on the issue of, as I conclude in 32H, because I really wanted Kenyans to understand what it means to be this amendment, is that the Cabinet Secretary shall submit an annual report to Parliament, and which means both houses, on the implementation of policies relating to the management of welfare of Kenyans living abroad and returnees, Mr. Speaker. I think this is when we are talking about accountability, Mr. Speaker. On the onset in my submission, I told you Kenyans have brought 649 billion Kenyan shillings within 2 years, 2019, 2020. It means we must audit. We must get reports. We don't want to assist Kenyans when they are crying in television because their relative has died in Far East or in any other part of the country, Mr. Speaker, or any part of the globe. We must address, Mr. Speaker, on how, Mr. Speaker, we can ensure that Kenyans who live abroad, who live anywhere, Mr. Speaker, are able, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the audit, the envision that we see, Mr. Speaker, the vision that we see, Mr. Speaker, is to have a cabinet secretary come to Parliament, tell us how many Kenyans are facing problems, have died, maybe, God forbid, how many Kenyans are facing challenges, what have they done about passports, what have they done about Huduma cards, ID numbers, Mr. Speaker, what have they, that is the issue we want to see, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in my closing remarks, these Kenyans who are largely hustlers, who are working paycheck to paycheck, who are working 2 to 3, Mr. Speaker, are watching 2 to 3 jobs. How do we safeguard their interest in running the government of Kenya, in ensuring they have a foothold in Kenya? And I want to assure the diaspora community that they have friends in this Senate who will push this legislative intervention to ensure, it is not a privilege, to ensure their rights as Kenyans who are living abroad is being protected. That is what we want to do in this amendment, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I urge my colleagues in this House, a number of them, Mr. Speaker, have indicated earlier, a number of them, Mr. Speaker, have worked or stayed abroad, and they are now leaders in this House or in the lower house, National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, or even others are MCAs, others are governors, others are ministers and what have you, Mr. Speaker, who have worked and stayed in the abroad, Mr. Speaker. So I want to challenge my colleagues in this House that let us, Mr. Speaker, ensure we deal with this issue. Let us debate this issue, pass expeditiously, and we hope the President will sign this amendment into law, because the financial interest that we have as a country in the Kenyan diaspora community is very unique, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, even I want to challenge political parties. We have a party called United Democratic Alliance, UDA. The constitution of UDA, Mr. Speaker, has included the diaspora caucus. I want to challenge, I can see my sister, who is an ardent member of ODM, to also include in their party a diaspora caucus. We are taking the lead as UDA, and we expect other political parties. Okay, I am ready to be informed by senior Dr.
Opposite sector, Senator Dr. Agnezani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wish that the current speaker would get his data right before he exposes what he might not know. He must know that ODM is the leading party with structures very well stipulated. We're the only party that has a wing for the youth, for the women, for the PWDs, and also for very active diaspora. So for your information, that is in place, and it has been in place for a very long time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, you know, since of course I beg ignorance of such, because I've never been a member of ODM. So it is, you know, Senator Zani, she's a senior member, and I agree to be informed. And I'm happy that they have active diaspora caucus, and also we are following in the lead by ensuring also so we ask other political parties. I hope, you know, in Kenya, we have some village political parties. So I hope also those village political parties can grow into national political parties and have diaspora caucus just like UDA, ODM, and other parties going into the future, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let us integrate diaspora community in the private sector. And I want to challenge, we didn't capture this in this bill, in this amendment. Ask the private sector also to be part of this, of engaging the diaspora community, Mr. Speaker. Let us encourage and ensure the private sector also becomes part of it, Mr. Speaker. Let us encourage the political parties, Mr. Speaker. Let us encourage our culture role. I normally see Meru, they have Njurinjeke. They also, the Kikuyu community have their own unique culture. We have the Kalenjins, they can see how they can partner, because, Mr. Speaker, there are Kenyans who are Kenyans. They have given birth to their children in America or any other part. They would really want to know their culture. They would really want to know the values of a certain community they come from. It is important we can see also how these cultural organizations can become part of the diaspora community that live there, Mr. Speaker. So I want to beg of my colleagues, let us look at this amendment objectively. Let us address this issue, Mr. Speaker. We are tired of seeing media running stories of bringing back bodies because families are frustrated. The government is doing nothing. We have put in the law. Now it is an obligation. I want to tell Kenyan communities in abroad and local Kenyan who have their families, whenever a misfortune happens, it is an obligation of the government to give the necessary attention to that Kenyan, because when you board a plane here as a Kenyan and go and walk in any part of the country, you don't lose your rights. You are still a Kenyan, you enjoy the right. We are now obligating the government to ensure the rights of the diaspora community are protected in accessing even services of passport renewal, ID cards, Huduma number, and many other, Mr. Speaker. So it's an honor to second this bill, and I hope my colleagues will agree with us. Let us debate this robustly. If you have good ideas, we'll note it down, and when it comes to the committee of the whole, we can. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I beg to second.
Honorable Senators, I therefore propose the question. Honorable Senators, I therefore propose the question, which is that the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 33 of 2021, be read a second time. Senator Charagay.
Mr. Speaker, there is a motion I beg to move on the election of a temporary speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move pursuant to to Article 107(1)(c) of the Constitution and the Standing Order 15, that therefore the Senate elects Senator Dr. Agnes Zani to preside at the sitting of the Senate today, Thursday, 30th September 2021, in the absence of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. I move and request Senator Okongo Mugeni to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honorable Senators, I therefore propose that pursuant to Article 107(1)(c) of the Constitution and Standing Order 15, the Senate elects Senator Dr. Agnes Zani to preside at the sitting of the Senate today, Thursday, 30th September 2021, in the absence of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker. Honorable Senators, I therefore put the question that pursuant to Article 107(1)(c) of the Constitution and the Standing Order 15, the Senate elects Senator Dr. Agnes Zani to preside at the sitting of the Senate today, Thursday, 30th September 2021, in the absence of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Dr. Agnes Zani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak, and I wish from the onset to say that I really support this bill and congratulate Senator Kenyatta, who has aptly moved this bill, and Senator Cherugey, who has really gone to expound it in details, giving us very critical information, I think, which is very, very key and very, very important. This is a matter, I think, that has been there for quite some time, and there is a policy paper that was put into place 2014. There might be an updated version. This is the Kenya Diaspora policy, and this policy was really to ensure that certain aspects of people who are living in the diaspora, Kenyans who are living in the diaspora, various issues are addressed at that time, and this should have built into legislation. So I see, Mr. Speaker, that if we look at this policy framework and we look at this legislation, they really marry. In fact, when you look at the policy framework that has been put into place, I think by Cabinet Secretary Amin Abdallah at that time and signed by her. And what we're talking about now in this bill, it's more or less the same issues, but even more expounded in this bill. In that policy, certain objectives were put into place, and these objectives are addressed in this bill. For example, the need to engage people who are living in the diaspora in national development, and indeed already they're involved in national development by bringing remittances home, by building home, by coming back to ensure that certain projects are done, by indeed even offering employment for many people. This is very critical. Then the second one was to ensure that they're able to mobilize and have associations that are well-formed, well-known, because I know in this field, if you leave it very fluid, Mr. Speaker, you'll find one person starting one association, another one has started a rival association, and then there's a problem there. So the need to mobilize these associations so that we have one association that can be able to be responsible for making various decisions and liaison with the missions within those countries, but also with Kenyan missions and Kenyan ministries so that this can be addressed. Then the third was the need to protect people living in the diaspora. Some time back, we were out in the diaspora talking to people who are in the diaspora, and they have very, very many issues. We have had a lot coming in through some of the labor that has been done, the issues of when people die, how are their bodies transported back, the need to fundraise, and all these things keep coming up. So the need to protect, because maybe the person out there who is in the diaspora is protected by certain laws, yes, but we need to be able, as the originator country for these people, to ensure that their protection is optimum. And then the need also to dialogue and have partnerships that are very, very key. And then also to ensure that at the end of the day, that there is an institutional mechanism for coordination and administration. And Mr. Speaker, I think this is what has been missing. That internal administration and coordination and putting it all together. And this is what this bill needs, is speaking to. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is speaking to a big percentage of people who are Kenyans who are living in the diaspora. We have different figures, as we said. Sometimes even in the various missions, the numbers might not be completely accurate, but we're talking about well over 3 million from the data that is coming around. And this is very, very key and very, very important. These are people who are living in the diaspora and making a change, not just for themselves, but for others as well. They're making a change for themselves because they've gone out to look for employment opportunities, and this is fine. And I saw recently also the Kenyan government together with, for example, the UK government talking about enabling scenarios for more expertise to be expatriated, for example, into the UK, for example, in areas like nursing. And this is the sort of partnership that we have, Kenya with other countries. And these, therefore, are able to earn, they're able to have employment, which maybe they did or they did not have. They might not have had employment and they wanted to get employment, or they might have had employment, but they wanted maybe to have a different experience and maybe get different amounts of money from elsewhere. So this is very, very key and very, very important. Senator Cherargei has talked very well about the remittances, big figures. If you just make comparisons, for example, with the figure that was there in 2020 in terms of remittances, was about 258 American dollars. And now we're talking about, in May 2021, 315.8 American dollars. That is a very big margin of differences. And we know very many people are relying on this money. Unfortunately, some of this money has been misused, it has been misdirected, where somebody has started a house. Money was put into a farm, and the farm is non-existent, and things like that. There's a paper that is key, which we can refer to by Misati, Kamau, and Nasir 2019. Why is this group so important? What are their indicators of financial development that we can owe to this group? Or how can we be able to measure them? The credit to the private sector as a share of GDP, that is very, very critical. How much credit they put into the private sector as a share of GDP. The number of mobile transactions, which are very high. The value of these mobile transactions and the money that is sent, which tends to be quite a bit. The number of mobile agents that is put into place, among other indicators. So there's no debate, Mr. Speaker, at all about the importance for this. This amendment bill is very, very key, and it amends the Kenya Citizen and Immigration Act, and just starts off from ensuring that certain definition and terms are put into place, which were not put into place, just to angle this particular act to ensure that diaspora is taken care of. For example, Kenyans living abroad, who is a returnee, and giving key responsibilities to the cabinet secretary for these very, very important developments that need to take place. The CS, or the cabinet secretary, is given lots of responsibility in this bill, and I'll just go through them very briefly, because Senator Charake had gone through all these very, very, from point to point, elaborating each of them. So again, developing and implementing strategies for Kenyans living abroad so that they can actually be able to enhance their own development experience. The safety and security of Kenyans has been mentioned, developing and implementing mechanism for engagement with Kenyans living abroad, key associations, key interlinkages with ministries, etc., establishment of administrative and institutional frameworks for the coordination of these people who are living abroad. This really ties well with the policy that I mentioned for 2014 regarding people living in the diaspora. And there's a lot of work now being done from people who are living in the diaspora by people who are living in the diaspora themselves, who are coming up more and more to give their experiences, to be on talk shows, for example, and to explain the various issues and experiences that are coming up and things that need to be addressed. So maybe in certain places where we talk about developing policies, maybe it's really to update the policy, look at this policy exhaustively, look to ensure that economic development, governance, and democratic processes in Kenya are given in such a way that they tend to incentivize these people who are living in the diaspora, and ensure that we have a collaborative framework for this. Access to legal representation is very, very key. And the renewal of passports, we saw this especially at the time when we were going into the digital passport. And then certain countries, for example, don't have a mission that are very close to everybody within a particular country. And we found Kenyans who are being told maybe to go to the neighboring country or to come back home for them to be able to do this process. I think somewhere along the line, the timelines were changed, and that afforded more time to be able to keep in sync with what is happening. But it would help for people to know where to go to, where things can be digitalized, they can be, where maybe we can use also technology and also transfer organizations and transfer systems. It would be very good, Mr. Speaker. For example, we know now that the process for passport, getting things in place, getting visas, is done through automation, and it's done through service providers who will take the passport, work on it, and then it is brought back. So yes, it is a tricky issue, but we need just to be able to make sure that at the end of the day, more services are expanded in whichever way. If it includes having more missions, go closer to the people, that might be the case, especially where certain things need to be done. How to reintegrate coming back, Mr. Speaker, this doesn't seem, when people think about it, it doesn't look, why do people need this sort of reintegration? They do. Because of the changes that they've had when they've been out there, and when they come back, they really need to be able to move into place. And then having a Presidential Distinguished Service Award for these Kenyans has also been mentioned. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been mentioned in this bill, very well thought out bill that really will enhance possibility of those who are coming back for reintegration, also for development, and for them to be able to really move very well, The issue of biometrics, and also how to put all these Kenya missions into place, I've already mentioned that, and that is very, very key. The issue of investment, and this tends to be problematic. Even when they come back, how can this be enhanced? One of the ways that it can be enhanced is to ensure we have a database, so that we have a database in place, which is very, very key, which is very, very noble, and people can know who is where and how can they be engaged in at different times. Some of these people come with great expertise, Mr. Speaker, but they tend maybe not to get tapped overall, universally. They might end up in an organization where they might be able to do very well, but it might also be important that they get tapped within a government network, so that they can be able to still give this back to the people, and they can be able to give this sort of expertise back to the people. So again, as I wind up, Mr. Speaker, at the last amendment clause 32H is the whole issue of submitting an annual report to Parliament on the implementation of policies. I think this is very key. And this will be able to keep us in vogue. When I was looking through this, I was quickly thinking about the penalty clauses, but I realized quickly that this is an amendment bill, so probably the main act has already taken care of all this. Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, given the very important role of people living in different countries, given their challenges, given their contribution, given their development, given what they bring back, I think it's very, very important to put these amendments into place. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Johnson Sakaja online.
I can be heard and seen.
We can hear you only.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll go right into it. First of all, I want to thank very profusely Senator Kenyatta for considering and thinking about the plight of Kenyans who are living in the diaspora and in supporting of this bill. I must say, first of all, that we must recognize these Kenyans. We must recognize Kenyans who are living abroad. They're in the hundreds of thousands, and they are a huge part of our economy. Mr. Speaker, these Kenyans indeed continue to raise the flag for our country, and they're our first ambassadors. Many people who will come from countries outside Kenya, their first interaction with our country is the Kenyans who are actually living in these countries all over the world, and then huge numbers. Mr. Speaker, it has been stated that as we speak, our biggest foreign income earner is remittances, Mr. Speaker. That is a good and a bad thing. It is a good thing because it shows that these Kenyans are still connected to their country. These Kenyans are still, concerned about their families and their relatives who live still in the country, and they're sending money. But it's a bad thing because it shows that indeed our balance of trade has gone down. Mr. Speaker, a country's biggest foreign earner must be a product of trade. It must be what we're exporting, as opposed to just money coming back to the country. So it is, every coin has two sides. It is both positive and negative. But because of that, we must acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, our country's economy has been able to be sustained in terms of our, foreign reserves, 6-month import cover because of these remittances. And when we've had fluctuations against the dollar, a lot of the support that we've had as a country and our ability to keep the shilling a bit stable.
There's a point of order, right, Senator Sakaja. There's a point of order. Senator Sakaja, please pause for a bit. Senator Cherargei, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, is it in order for the distinguished senator of Nairobi City County to continuously refer to you as Mr. Speaker instead of Madam Speaker? Is it in order? I think he's out of order, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. Senator Sakaja, what do you have to say?
Madam Speaker, I take judicial notice of your agenda. I'm sorry, I was still thinking that the Speaker who was on the chair was still on the chair. And I want to also congratulate you for assuming that I think this is possibly the first time I've seen you on the chair as the Speaker. Last time I said that the first time Senator of Laikipia was on the chair, I was also on the floor. The first time Senator Manyora was on the chair, I was on the floor. So there seems to be some luck, or in Nairobi, as we call it, kismat, when I am on the floor of the House, Madam Speaker. So
there's a lot of good
congratulations.
Luck. There's a lot of good luck, and continue with your contribution. We were enjoying listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, as I've said, these remittances coming in are two sides of a coin. It's both good and bad. But we must applaud these Kenyans. We must recognize them, and we must treat them with the honor and respect they deserve by bringing services closer to them. So this bill is amazing. Madam Speaker, I've gone down the world, and I've realized, especially in our last visit to the Middle East, that there is a recognition that as a country, our greatest asset, Madam Speaker, is our people. This country of Kenya does not have gold. We don't have oil. Of course, we tried in Turkana, but even when the prices went up, people asked in Swahili whether mafuta ya Turkana ni ya kujipaka, sio ya kuweka kwa gari. But Madam Speaker, we don't have a lot of resources under the ground. Our biggest resource, Madam Speaker, is our people. our biggest resource is above the ground. And we've realized that indeed we must leverage on this great human resource. All over the world, Kenyans are hailed to be very productive, very hardworking, very resilient. They are hailed to be, the best workers that you will find across the world. And so we must tap into this great resource that we have, which is the people of Kenya. We must see labor and the export of labor as economic frontier that must be harnessed to the greatest ability, or to the greatest level. And that is why, if you remember, in the last parliament, I sponsored a bill, which is now an act, that created the National Employment Authority. Madam Speaker, this National Employment Authority, within the board, I made sure that we have the Foreign Affairs Ministry, as well as the Labor Ministry and Ministry of Finance, to make sure that we can actually scope the opportunities. Unemployment is the biggest problem in our country, and many of the opportunities for young people indeed will be found outside the country. Madam Speaker, this discussion is coming at a good time, where we are also discussing the labor migration policy. Our country does not have labor migration laws as we speak. And that is why we have Kenyans undergoing a lot of trouble, a lot of hard times, especially in the Middle East. I did a tour, and my committee is bringing a report. The Committee of Labor is bringing a report in the next few days to the Senate on our inquiry. And in our inquiry, Madam Speaker, we were able to realize that, for instance, in a country like Saudi Arabia, there are more than 88,700 Kenyans working there. This is a country that is a net import of labor. There are 14 million non-Saudis working in their country, because either of their wealth, they do not, there's some jobs they would rather not do. But Madam Speaker, out of this 88,000, there are a good number of Kenyans who've had a lot of challenges. If you go to my timeline on Twitter as we speak, incidentally, and I don't know if it's a coincidence, there is a gentleman called Obedo Brown who has just tweeted me saying that please assist us to locate and repatriate back to Kenya the body of their brother, Hudson Obedo, who is said to have died on the 16th while in detention in Saudi Arabia. And it said that his body is at Shamizi Hospital. Madam Speaker, there are so many cases like this. And every time these cases arise, it has to take the intervention of elected leaders. It has taken my intervention to connect them with the mission abroad. This should not be the case. And I'm very glad that the Principal Secretary and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said emphatically that until we are now able to guarantee the safety and the well-being of Kenyans working in these countries, that we must now stop for a period of time the expatriation or rather the export of this labor, because we've had rogue agents who do not, Madam Speaker, keep their end of the bargain. They do not give people the right expectations. And because there is this, hunger for these jobs, many of our girls are going without knowing exactly what they're going to get themselves into. They are not trained properly for the jobs that they're going for. And because of that, then they're being harassed. But the biggest issue why we have this, and I'll give an example, a country like the Philippines. The Philippines has the highest number of immigrant workers in these countries in the Middle East, but their immigrant workers are treated with dignity. They are treated better. And why they're treated better is because there is a proper office of diaspora, which does country-to-country negotiations on many of these issues. Madam Speaker, you'll be shocked that even the cost of sending money from Saudi Arabia or Qatar to the Philippines is much less. They have negotiated. They have negotiated even the cost of making phone calls by these workers, Madam Speaker, that they have a lower rate of making phone calls back to their families. Madam Speaker, if you look at how they are treated, their contracts, the government knows where each and every person who has come from the country is working. And there is a system called Musanid, which we were able to look at and had a meeting with the Ministry of Labor in Saudi Arabia as well as Foreign Affairs. And in that Musanid system, in this country, we should be able to know that Grace Akinyi, for instance, who left Kenya, has gone and is with his family in Riyadh. She is working at this pay, and this is the phone number we can contact her from. We should be able to know where every Kenyan working outside is. So I'm glad that there's a reference to this in this bill with respect to a database, but I would propose a certain number, a raft of amendments that will have a lot of borrowing from the labor migration policy that is being worked on to make sure that we secure these people. Madam Speaker, a Kenyan, if you look at our constitution, a Kenyan is a Kenyan no matter where they reside. A Kenyan should have access to the rights that Kenyans in Kenya enjoy, whether you're in Saudi Arabia, whether you're in Japan, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in India, whether you're in the United States of America. And as I've said repeatedly, Madam Speaker, a first-class country cannot have a second-class citizen. we must not accept any of our citizens of the country of Kenya to be treated as second-class citizens, wherever they might be. So apart from the peaceful interventions that have been there, I'm glad that we're getting into a legislative regime where we'll be able to address these issues directly, where we'll be able to streamline the issues of labor migration, and also streamline the other issues that have been mentioned in this piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, I'm dealing with a case right now of a gentleman, and I'm glad that this bill speaks about associations of Kenya. A gentleman called Peter Callisto. And this is an issue I've raised with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I've raised it with CAS, Ababu Namwamba. Peter Callisto has been, for a long time, helping Kenyans in Saudi who have had issues. They had an association, which they call, I think, Salia. And in these associations, when Kenyans have issues, they come together, they're able to contribute. But this association, Madam Speaker, has been banned. And you wonder why the embassy or the mission would ban an association of Kenyans who come together to help each other at the time of need. Peter has been in detention in Riyadh. He's still in detention. And I have raised this issue. I'm glad that in the last few weeks, there's been some movement in sorting out his problem. But there are too many cases. And cases should not be dealt with because somebody can access Senator Sakaja or somebody can access another leader. They should be dealt with because, Madam Speaker, every Kenyan deserves the right. So if you have a diaspora office, Madam Speaker, all of these issues will be dealt with seamlessly. It will be part of the structure of sorting out the plight of Kenyans who are living abroad. Madam Speaker, I want to hail Kenyans who we've come across. I'm not sure if you were there with us when we went to Canada. Some Kenyans, some senators came with us, British Columbia and Vancouver. The Kenyans who have, volunteered to assist other Kenyans. There is one Dr. Franklin Mbenzi. Dr. Mbenzi is in the British Columbia University, but he is almost like an employee of the Kenyan government because he has facilitated so many students. He has helped address their issues. Madam Speaker, and I'm glad this bill talks about volunteership, but such a Kenyan needs to be recognized. Such a Kenyan needs to be given a state commendation, and they need to be employed or even given a job as an honorary consular in that country, Madam Speaker. And there are many Kenyans in many different places that have come across. We must acknowledge the good work they do and what they've been able to do. Madam Speaker, when I go to my third point, it's about services that are available at the Kenyan mission. Indeed, it's a very, very noble idea by Senator Kenyatta that these missions must be able to devolve or to go to other cities. I had an incident, incidentally, recently when I was moving from the US to Canada just a month ago, where it would have taken me, I would have had to go back to Washington, D.C. Yet I was in New York to get a letter from the Kenyan mission. However, it was sorted out. Many Kenyans who are in Utah, who are in California, who might be in different states, the US is vast, have to go all the way to Washington, D.C. or to New York to get consular services. That must not be the case. That should not be the case. Our Constitution, Article 82(1)(d), if I'm not wrong, Madam Speaker, talks about registration of Kenyans as voters, wherever they might be. Kenyans in the diaspora should be able to be allowed to vote, and they should be able to vote in an efficient way that does not mean them traveling thousands of kilometers to get to a Kenyan mission. So we must be creative about how we use technology. We must be creative about how we create satellite offices for our missions abroad, for many services, not just registration of voters, renewal of passports. Moving your passport from the old generation passport to the new generation passport must be something that is sufficient. It is a right of a Kenyan. It is not a favor that we should be giving them. It is a right of every Kenyan to be able to have status. Madam Speaker, this new dispensation of the 2010 Constitution created what we call dual citizenship. There are many Kenyans who lost their citizenship because when they went to these other countries, they had to relinquish their Kenyan citizenship. If you got a green card, if you got citizenship in the UK, in South Africa, in many of these countries, the Constitution now provides that you can be a dual citizenship if you opt in. This should be automatic, Madam Speaker. Let the Kenyans be able to say that, no, I don't want to have Kenyan citizenship, but every Kenyan who left the country and lost their citizenship by virtue of being a dual citizen must be deemed to be a Kenyan again until they opt out. It is easier and it is a right as opposed to saying you opt in and now apply to become a Kenyan citizen again. Because it is a right, it is our birthright. We did not ask to be born in this country, but we were born in this country. Our parents were born in this country. And that must be reinstated for many. I think the most popular case or the most known case is that of Miguna. But it is very sad that somebody who is known to be Kenyan, his village, where he came from, where he was born, which schools he went to, can have to negotiate his status as a Kenyan citizen. Madam Speaker, further to that, I'm grateful that Article 32B spells out very clear roles and duties for the Cabinet Secretary, including measures to enhance safety and security of Kenyans living abroad. And I just want to, without preempting or anticipating debate, because our standing orders prohibit that, to tell Kenyans that when the report of the Labour Committee comes on the issue of labour migration, we are going to propose a raft of very serious measures. It has taken some time because we do want to do a piecemeal intervention. Very serious measures, including those Kenyans who want to come back must be brought back by the government. Those who went into contracts that they are not sure about and through rogue agencies must be brought back, and those agencies will be deregistered. We have a list of those agencies. We have been meeting with the association, we've been meeting with the CS of Labour, who are still retained the job with the CS of Foreign Affairs and their team. And we must do that. We must secure Kenyans at all costs. I want to speak additionally, as I move to conclude, I want to encourage Kenyans. It is very interesting. The first time I addressed Kenyans in the US, I was in the company, or rather I accompanied His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, in New York and in DC. And I told them something that shocked them, because most leaders tell Kenyans who are living abroad, come back home for us to build Kenya.
Senator Sakaja, kindly stop. There's a point of order from Senator Mugeni.
Madam Speaker, if you watched my good friend, the Senator for Bomet, he has just crossed the floor from this side to the other side. I know he belongs to the Asla nation, but when we're in Parliament, he must follow the standing orders. Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Mugeni, for being alert. Senator Langat, kindly do the needful. Thank you, Senator Langat. Please proceed, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And you might want to consider, we're talking about teachers' continuous professional development. I think we might now need continuous induction in the Senate to remind people that you do not cross the floor. Madam Speaker, I was saying that I told these Kenyans that unlike many politicians who, for whatever reason, or maybe lack of better imagination, will tell Kenyans to come back to the country to build it, I told them, don't come back yet. Because you came here or you moved out of Kenya for a reason. There's something you're looking for. Those countries, for instance, the US, they call themselves the land of the free, the home of the brave, a land of opportunities. And those opportunities are in jobs. People have 3 jobs, 2 jobs. Across the world, right now, you're seeing people asking for employment. I told them, do not necessarily come back, but partner with us in Kenya to make Kenya a land of opportunity. And once you've done that, if whatever you're getting in the US, if whatever you're getting in Saudi, if whatever you're getting in the UK or in India is available in Kenya, you will bring yourself back. There is no politician who will have to tell you to come back home. And that indeed should be the mantra going forward. That let us partner with these Kenyans. Let us have a database. I know many of them are out of status. And because of that, they're shy to go to the embassies because they don't have documentation. But we must treat these Kenyans with respect, when I speak, and they must partner with us. Our missions in some of the countries, and when I was vice chair of the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations, I realized that many of our missions are not safe havens for these Kenyans. Madam Speaker, a mission abroad must be a fortress for a Kenyan. A Kenyan must know if they're in any trouble, they can call the mission, they can call the ambassador, they can call the deputies and the staff in the mission to come to the rescue, but not to run away from them. And I implore upon all our foreign serving Kenyans in missions to have that attitude, that you're there to serve Kenyans and not to serve those foreign countries. You're there to represent the interests of the people of Kenya. And Madam Speaker, in as much as there are many who are doing it right, there are others who are not, who quickly take the sides of the foreigners instead of the Kenyans. And that is why the Constitution is very clear that you cannot be a state officer, including an ambassador, if you have dual citizenship. Because if you're an ambassador, your allegiance must be 100% to the Republic and the people of Kenya, because that is the first interest that you're serving over there. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to support this bill. I'm glad, and I want to report that even when I was in Washington, D.C., met with people from the office of the mayor of Washington, D.C., the one to partner with Nairobi County, our sister cities. These sister cities, the people who will rise are the Kenyans staying there. We have an agreement with Colorado about sister cities with Nairobi, which is going well because there are a lot of things to share. We want to do sister cities with DC. We want to do sister cities with LA. We want to do sister cities with London, even with some countries in Africa. And Madam Speaker, I'm confident that even next year, when I become the governor of Nairobi, inshallah, God willing, if the people of Nairobi support me, and I'm confident that they will, that we will strengthen and we will use the Kenyans who are living outside Kenya to build our city of Nairobi and to build our country of Kenya. So thank you so much, Senator Kenyatta and Cherargei. I will support, and I also will propose some amendments so that we bring this bill in line with the other matters that have been thoroughly flushed and discussed in, at length in the labor migration policy. Madam Speaker, I support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Sakaja. And we note that a probable addition in terms of legislation, in terms of the labor migration policy. We looked for this some time back, and we were not able to really locate it. So a bit of work might need to be done there, and how we can bargain better for those of us who are, or those who are in diaspora, the Kenyans who are in diaspora. You have mentioned the case of Philippines. Maybe this is also another area just to borrow from what others have done in terms of bargaining out there for better rates, better terms. Thank you for that contribution, Senator Sakaja. Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo, Nyamira County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also rise to support the Kenya Citizenship and Migration Amendment Bill 2021 that has been sponsored by my good friend Senator Irungu Kenyatta. Madam Speaker, I first want to begin by thanking Senator Kenyatta, Senator Muranga, whom I'm told is making his way to becoming the governor of Muranga, and I wish him well, for this bill, Madam Speaker, that is meant to put in place mechanisms for protecting the interests of our brothers and sisters who are living in the diaspora. And Madam Speaker, let us all acknowledge that at times it's not out of choice that these Kenyans migrate to other countries out there. It's because, Madam Speaker, as a country, we have not been able to grow our economy to the level that we can absorb all the youths that graduate either from our universities, from our technical colleges, or from our high schools. So we must also thank many countries out there that have graciously offered employment opportunities to our youth out there. Secondly, Madam Speaker, we must also thank this group of Kenyans who contribute immensely to the growth of our economy. Madam Speaker, you can imagine what will happen to this country if these Kenyans out there woke up one day and said they are not going to do any remittance back to their motherland. Because, Madam Speaker, as of this year, these good sisters and brothers of ours remitted a total of 315 million USD to our economy. That is a colossal amount of money. And Madam Speaker, these are people we know. These are brothers, these are our sisters. I have several of my kinsmen who live out there. I have a sister who lives in the US. And if you go back to my county of Nyamira and to my neighboring county of Kisii, we have so many Kisiis who live out there. So I really must say that this is a very good bill, Mr. Speaker, because it seeks to protect and safeguard the welfare of these Kenyans who, in all sense of the word, remain Kenyans, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, when we were enacting the Kenyan Constitution of 2010, we were innovative enough to put a clause that allows for dual citizenship so that these Kenyans can feel a sense of belonging, that despite the many years that they spend out there, they still have connection to their motherland and that they can freely move back even as they acquire citizenship in other countries out there. And Madam Speaker, just like my other colleagues who have made a contribution before me, I've been privileged to meet Kenyans out there who have raised concerns on the issue of passports. I remember in 2019, Madam Speaker, I was in Melbourne over some private business. And I met the chairman of the Kenyan community in Melbourne, a gentleman called Michael from Western Kenya. And they shared with me the agonizing experiences and the cost implications for a Kenyan who wants to renew his passport, because they have to travel all the way to the capital city in Canberra. And the other problem is that when you go to these offices, Madam Speaker, there is no efficiency in terms of service being offered to these Kenyans. They go there, they will spend one day trying to do paperwork processing, then they will be told, come back again and check. Whereas when they are renewing the passports of their adopted countries, it takes very few hours, Mr. Speaker. And you go online, you fill everything, and then you drop it somewhere and you get it, almost real time. So this also speaks to the kind of efficiency that we should demand from the people who are serving us, the civil servants who have been privileged to join the public service. They should be sensitive to the fact that out there, every hour counts. You earn per hour. So when you make these Kenyans to spend time traveling all the way from Melbourne to Canberra, or the way we have been told from Seattle to Washington, or from California to Washington, we are not being fair to them. I met another group in Sydney. There is a Kenyan friend I met there from Meru called Alex Matthew. Same experience. I met another group in Canberra. Same experience, Mr. Speaker. My good friend Jeff could not understand why they are to really go through all these agonizing experiences. Yet, they are very key stakeholders in our economy. So I really want to appeal the government to take this bill seriously and ensure that we treat these Kenyans correspondingly, taking into account their contribution to our economy. If you want to understand how important this population in the diaspora is, you need to look at the case of India, Madam Speaker. India, I think, is one of the continents that has sent so many of its citizens to so many countries. Even here, Madam Speaker, in Kenya, if you go to Kisumu, there is an MP there called, I think he's called Shakir. He's serving 3 terms. Most popular, one of the most popular MPs from Nyanza, uninterrupted 3 terms. If you go to Eldoret, we have, I think they call him Kiprop. I went to Eldoret and I was told the MP is called Kiprop, but he's an Indian origin MP called Mishra, Dr. Mishra. Very popular. If you go to Meru, the same thing. In Embakasi, we had, I think through ODM, there's this guy, Sumra, was MP for Embakasi. So you can see how these guys migrate out of their motherland, they come here. Look at the businesses that are run by Kenyans of Indian origin, many of them. And when you look at the figures, the global figures, India is the leading country in terms of remittances. They contribute, I think, 12% of all the money that is remitted back to the countries. That's why, Madam Speaker, if you go to Dubai today, you'll find so many Indians. The hotels, the hospitality industry, Madam Speaker, they are even in the police sector, serving in United Arab Emirates. And when you go down to look at the figures, you may see these guys and just think they are just casual workers. But when you go down to the figures, from United Arab Emirates alone, they remit to their country 13.8 billion US dollars. That's a lot of money, Madam Speaker. So we really need to ensure that this cadre of Kenyans that have gone out there to look for greener pastures, for lack of good employment opportunities, we treat them nicely, and we put in place systems that make it easier, for them to have connection with their motherland. Madam Speaker, even when we talk about trade or transfer of knowledge and skills, there is a time the county of Nyamira received volunteer nurses from Texas, United States of America. And after giving those voluntary services for 1 week, patients were crying, saying, where did those nurses go? Because of the transfer of knowledge and experience, the professionalism that they have learned out there. So, Madam Speaker, if we appreciated that fact that these guys bring a lot of knowledge and experience here, and we remunerated them in a competitive way to match what they earn out there, it will make a tremendous difference, even in our health sector and in other sectors. Second, Madam Speaker, you also know that at times, though we say it is positive, these guys are remitting money back to our country, at times there is also a negative aspect. Some of it is exploitation of our people. You know, look at what is happening with our house managers. I don't want to call them house girls because I find it demeaning, but Kenyans who move to United Arab Emirates to serve as house managers, they get a lot of mistreatment and exploitation. The moment they land in United Arab Emirates, their passports are seized, kept by their bosses. They will never access them. Some are beaten mercilessly by their masters, and there is nobody to help them. They have nowhere to run to. In 2019, a good friend of mine, Madam Speaker, the then NAT chair of Nyamira, Mr. Nyamwanda, had a misfortune of losing a sister who had migrated to United Arab Emirates. And the information was hidden from the family for a period of over 4 months. By the time news was coming in, that girl had died 4 months earlier. And even to try and bring the body back home was a very agonizing and painful experience for that family. So when this bill proposes that the government should put in place mechanisms of assisting these Kenyans, I fully support. This is a good thing, Madam Speaker, and I hope that the government will fully support this bill. Madam Speaker, the other day, I was privileged to be in a delegation that was observing the voting in Bahamas. And I don't know why we are not able to incorporate these Kenyans into our voting system. If I'm correct, and if I'm wrong, Professor Senator Kindiki can correct me. I think the only Kenyans in the diaspora who are allowed to vote in presidential elections are Kenyans in, I think, United States and South Africa, if I'm not wrong. Just 2 countries. Even our colonial master, 8 hours away from Nairobi, Kenyans in the UK are not able to vote. Madam Speaker, it's a tragedy. When we as leaders, when we meet our friends, I met a friend of mine called Mogoko. He's a doctor now, who moved to the UK. And I was asking, really, you guys, you think we cannot sit down and discern the best leaders that our country needs, and we get an opportunity to vote? And he said, look, our High Commissioner is here in London, where there's a huge population, and we never participate in picking our leaders. So I really hope that IEBC can be innovative and put in place mechanisms for giving these Kenyans, who are very knowledgeable, and they will not need to be bribed. These are guys who are financially independent, Madam Speaker. They just look at the manifesto of our presidential candidates, maybe our governors, and they pick the best leaders. And those are the people who want to feel their input in picking or electing leaders that can transform this country. You can see what the banking industry has done, Madam Speaker. If you go to cooperative bank, just before I came to this house as a senator, I used to do conveyancing. Now other lawyers in my office do it. I used to do conveyancing for cooperative bank. And there are many occasions, Madam Speaker, that I was handling security documentation and perfection on behalf of Kenyans who live in the diaspora. I did work for a client in the UK because of client advocate confidentiality. I don't want to mention his name. He was buying a house in Ruaka. I did that transaction for him, and that's a Kenyan working in the UK, but who is having a bank customer relationship with cooperative bank in Kenya, and is borrowing money while he's out there. being financed by the bank to do an investment in Kenya. That's what we want, because that's a way of really contributing to our economy. Equity Bank is doing the same. I mean, so if the banking industry has tapped into these Kenyans out there, why can't IBC do something about it, Madam Speaker? Because that is the best way of making those Kenyans to have more attachment to their motherland, and that's one of the way of making it like an incentive for them to have an integral part on the many socio-economic, political activities that are happening in this country. Another point I wanted to make, Madam Speaker, is that I want to appeal, I can see my time is up, I want to appeal to the migration officers. Even before we put before this bill becomes law, the migration office in Kenya should also be fairly sensitive to these Kenyans. When they come back home, Madam Speaker, at times these Kenyans only have about 8 days or 10 days to be in the country. And when they go to the migration offices, Madam Speaker, they should be given priority. Because we should take judicial notice of the fact that these are guys who are just coming in. Maybe they have 1 day in the city before they travel to Nyamira, and we process their documents fast enough. And I want to thank, I think he's a deputy principal migration officer. He's called Mr. Nyatigo. I once went there with a case of a Kenyan who had come from the US and who was coming back from Nyamira. He had 2 days in the country. And I was impressed the way that officer received him, very professional. He was able to, give him professional attention, and he handled his case within the shortest time possible. I really want to support this bill and thank Senator Kenyatta for bringing this bill to the House, and I really hope that once we enact it, it will get assent from the President and it becomes law. I will not resume my seat without thanking people like Professor Makau Mutua, who has led by example. Professor Mutua has taught, I think, in the US for more than 30 years, I believe. But when his time to retire, as his time to retire approaches, he has put up a fantastic hotel in makwiny. You can imagine. What that tells us is that even as these Kenyans spend time out there trying to earn an income that can support them and their families, their minds in terms of investments and retirements is still in their motherlands. So with those remarks, Madam Speaker, I support and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for highlighting the need for sensitivity in handling our members in the diaspora and always remembering what they have done. Thank you for those contributions. Next is Senator Langat Christopher Andrew, Bomet County.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me this opportunity to strongly support this particular bill. It's a very important bill. I've gone through, Madam Speaker, and I have seen that it will be an eye-opener and as well as a development strategy among the Kenyans that who are living abroad. Just right from the onset, Madam Speaker, I want to say that the contextual terms, the definition of the contextual terms is very important. It has created an eye-opener for further understanding of this particular bill, especially to those people who are not maybe lawyers. So it is very important. It makes it so easy to understand some terms that are related to this particular bill. I want to say, Madam Speaker, that we are living in a global village, and due to information technology, new information technology, the world has been reduced to a small village. And the movement of people currently from one country to another is so high. I can remember very well 2 months ago, I went to Kisumu Immigration Office, and the place was so congested. And I really realized that the movement of people from this country to other countries is so high. Remember very well that due to information technology, people can access even employment opportunities from other countries apart from Kenya. And I want to say that coming up with such a bill is so important, particularly at this particular time when people are moving to other countries searching for employment. Peter, I want to quote Peter Trucker in his particular article on 21st century development strategies. He once says that to be able to compete effectively with other countries in the 21st century, we must be able to understand the level of a country as far as the information technology is concerned. And therefore, understanding information technology in our country and even enabling young people to learn about this particular information technology will expand their knowledge. And even though they will be at home, they will be able to access information from other countries and various opportunities. This one, Madam Speaker, makes me feel very sad when I go around several schools and see the program that was introduced in this country on the laptops programs that was supposed to begin some about 12 years ago in Standard 1s. You remember very well when I was the chair of education, we made a survey in some countries to ascertain the level of computer literacy in most of our primary schools as a result of the introduction of laptops in our schools. And it was very unfortunate that we discovered that most of the pupils were not even accessing those particular laptops, and in most of the schools that were having, those laptops were just lying idle in cupboards. So it was very unfortunate, because what will connect our country and other parts of the world is through the knowledge of information technology. So I want to say that this particular bill is very important. First of all, it has highlighted a framework that will enable Kenyans living abroad to participate in development of their country. This is so important because most of them have gone to America, and I saw most of the Kenyans in California and some other parts of America who have really developed America. And when we interacted with most of them, we realized that it was not out of their will not to develop our country. We were lacking a legal framework that will enable them to participate fully in economic development of our country. And this particular bill has shedded a lot of light, and it is providing that particular economic development framework that will enable Kenyans living in other countries to participate in development fully. Another one is that I'm so happy because of the fact that out of this bill also, we can see safety framework. More often than not, when we go to the social media in every day, we are able to see very sad scenes and stories of Kenyans suffering abroad, especially in Arabic countries such as Qatar and other countries. We have seen Kenyans being tortured. We have seen Kenyans being neglected by the agencies that took them to those particular countries. We have seen their passports being confiscated, and they are really suffering. Out of this particular bill, Madam Speaker, I have seen a very clear framework for the safety of Kenyans living in those particular countries. So the safety of Kenyans within our country and outside our country is very important. And I've seen this particular bill provide that particular safety framework. So it will be a signal and a message to Kenyans who are feeling so insecure in other countries to understand that there is a bill that is coming that will provide safety and comfort when they are living outside this country. You know, in this country, we have got so many agencies that are taking advantage of Kenyans who are looking for employment, who are so desperate. So they take most of the Kenyans, cheating them, of course. There was a girl, I brought a statement here one time to save a girl from our county that was working in Qatar, and the agencies had looked completely their communication processes with that particular girl. And yet the girl was suffering, the girl was being tortured, the girl was being enslaved. And when we conducted the agencies were not responding. But this particular bill is providing a clear framework which will actually guide the agencies on how they will be engaging Kenyans, taking them from our country to abroad and getting employed. Most of the Kenyans are cheated. They are going to work in hotels. Some of them are being cheated. They are going to work in the airport. Some of them are being cheated. They are going to work in offices. And after reaching those particular countries, they are reduced to work as mates out of their will. So this particular bill would provide a clear framework that will also control the actions of these particular agencies so that they may work based on ethical and professional frameworks and handling these particular Kenyans with decorum. Number three, I want to say that this particular bill is also providing an information framework. Information is power. It will be very important for all of us, those who are within our country, to get proper information on even daily basis on those particular relatives, our relatives who are working abroad. It is also very important for them to understand the daily activities taking place in their country. This information that will be reaching them and the information we shall be getting from them is very important, particularly on the scholarly world. I believe that information is power because even our students who are working abroad, who are studying abroad, they'll be getting a lot of information. The research that is taking place in other countries will be able to reach our country to enable us to continue using those particular research reports to develop our country. So information sharing, the framework that has been set by this particular bill on the information sharing is very important. Another thing that I have seen is collaboration. It is providing a clear collaboration framework whereby it is opening up collaboration avenues whereby our people who are living abroad are able to collaborate effectively, either in terms of development, in terms of consultation, in terms of maybe investment, and so forth. The collaboration processes are so clear as stipulated in this particular bill, Madam Speaker. And I want to say also I've seen the bill emphasizing on investment. Currently, there is no clear framework that will enable Kenyans living abroad or staying in other countries to get a clear investment avenues. But this particular bill will provide a framework that will enable the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the ministry that this particular bill will be customized in to provide policies that will effectively provide ways that will enable Kenyans living abroad to participate fully in investment. This will enable them to open up their understanding, open up their ways, open up their collaborative ways so that they can invest with banks within our country and even those banks within other countries. And I want to say also that this particular bill has provided a clear framework that the government will be able to get clear updates and databases of those Kenyans living abroad, so that this particular database will enable Kenya fiscal and development departments to clearly plan for these particular people abroad and even plan for them when they will be coming back to their countries. Another one is processes. It will enable Kenyans living abroad and Kenyans living within our country to process passports effectively. You can see sometimes back up to this time, it is taking some Kenyans months and several weeks to get their passports. This particular bill will clearly touch on those particular areas where processing of passports will be facilitated very easily, and it will facilitate the movements of Kenyans from one country to another one very easily. Another one is a framework that will clearly state how those people will return from abroad to Kenya after living in abroad for a long time. This particular people requires some very clear policy that will enable them to come back to their country and then be able to come and adjust their living lifestyles to this particular country. Most of the Kenyans have left Kenya for almost 40 to 50 years. For those people to come back and adjust their lifestyle to live in Kenya so easily like that is not very easy. But this particular bill will enable the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Immigration to provide particular policies that will enable Kenyans who are returning to their country to come and be assisted to do counseling processes, to do being engaged in particular psychological processes that will enable them to adjust and live in their home comfortably. I've also seen that this particular bill will also engage the ministry concerned in providing almost weekly and even monthly updates about the lives of Kenyans who are living abroad. It will also check to find out that how are the Kenyans living abroad living. You find that we've traveled to most of the countries, and whenever you go to other countries and see how Kenyans are suffering, how Kenyans are really being frustrated, it really demoralizes. So this particular bill, I will also support it and say that it should even be expanded further so that those particular people living abroad may get proper policies for health through the engagement with our health insurance policies that we have in Kenya, and even welfare. We should come up with welfare policies for Kenyans who are living abroad. I've seen some Kenyans living abroad whenever unfortunate happens that one of them dies abroad. It is so expensive among the family members to bring their bodies back. But if this particular bill comes up and those additions are added on the welfare of those Kenyans when they are living and when they are no longer living, put in place, it will enable most of the Kenyans living abroad to live comfortably, knowing very well their welfare when they are living and their welfare when they depart is well taken care of. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say I support this particular bill, and I want to congratulate Senator Kenyatta and call upon all the legislators that we support this particular bill to see the light of the day so that Kenyans may live comfortably within and without wherever they are. Thank you. I support this bill, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Langat. Thank you for that broad overview of the bill. Next, Professor Kindiki Kithure, Tharaka Nithi County.
Honorable Speaker, it is my first day to submit when you're on the chair. I therefore congratulate you and wish you well. Maybe you are older than I think, but this is my first day to address this House while you're chairing or presiding. Honorable Speaker, great civilizations in many parts of the world have been built by diaspora. All the great countries in Western Europe, the Americas, including the USA, actually has been built by foreigners. That's why in many advanced and powerful nations on earth, you will find as many nationalities as possible in those countries. It is very rare to find a successful country which is homogeneous, and there are a few exceptions. For example, China, which is also opening up after realizing that you cannot build a sustainable civilization using homogeneous ideas or indigenous ideas. Therefore, I want to salute the many people from this country, or people who have their origin in Kenya, who have decided to make a living abroad, to settle there, to invest there, to work there, yet in their heart of hearts, they are Kenyans, they are patriotic, and they love their country. And therefore, this bill is very timely in terms of encouraging these Kenyans and helping them to feel that they are part of our nation. We love them, we appreciate them, we wish them well, and they are always welcome should they want to participate in the affairs of their own country, and should they want to retire here after maybe the children have grown up and the older people want to come back home. This bill addresses those things on how we can support our colleagues who have decided to make a living outside our country. And I don't think it makes somebody a lesser citizen simply because they are working abroad. In fact, it is actually those who have ventured abroad who really have even a broader contribution and a deeper contribution to make the development of our country. Honorable Speaker, those who are working abroad are actually promoting trade, because the discourse in the World Trade Organization is now moving from being dominated by trade in goods to trade in services. So the many teachers, nurses, architects, engineers, lawyers who are out there working and engaging in services in those countries and maybe sending money at home are actually promoting Kenya's trade, Kenya's international trade in services. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans abroad have made huge contributions in terms of remittances from abroad, which is a major contribution to our GDP. There has been areas of concern. One of them has been on the issue of psychosocial and legal support for our colleagues who are out there. We have had cases of distress. Recently, there was a major humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, and many countries actually invested heavily in terms of trying to locate their nationals in those countries and trying to evacuate them because of the crisis in that country. It's a pity that our country, I didn't see much effort, and I know there are many Kenyans. I even know 2 people from Tharaka Nithi who have been working in Afghanistan for the last 15 years, and we couldn't reach them, and up to now, we even don't know where they are. And there didn't seem to be a coordinated effort by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs to assist people to trace their relatives or even to evacuate citizens who were under still hold up in Afghanistan. We have cases which I don't want to repeat in Saudi Arabia and other places where Kenyans have been stranded in the Middle East and other places. And therefore, this puts into sharp focus the role of our diplomatic missions abroad. And I'm afraid to say in many of our embassies and diplomatic missions, they will not give you a clear picture of how many Kenyans are in the country of their jurisdiction and where they reside and even what they do for a living. What they do is just to host a Madaraka Day celebrations in the embassy once every year and invite the people around the city where the ambassador is resident And therefore, we want to urge our embassies and diplomatic missions to see the many Kenyans who are out there working in their jurisdictions as an asset to our country and as part of the core mandate of our diplomatic missions abroad. This bill calls for continuous engagement between the national government and county governments with Kenyans abroad. I want to make a very quick observation here, Honorable Speaker, which is that as we enter into the second decade of devolution, it is clear that counties increasingly are facing financial distress because of dwindling financial remittances from the national government. And the way to go now is to empower counties to be able to receive support, even in terms of grants, which they can be able to directly engage with even abroad, with sister counties, sister subnational units, and even private organizations who engage in development. And if that be the case, and I strongly believe that is the direction that will guarantee the sustainability of our counties, then the role of Kenyans in diaspora becomes extremely important. Because, and I know, protect me from the mover, the sponsor of this motion.
Order senators, could we have consult in, could we consult could we consult more quietly? Continue, Senator.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I challenge counties and county governments to map out residents of their counties who are abroad and find out which countries these residents are and use them as possible avenues of fundraising and getting bilateral support from organizations abroad, because yes, they are all Kenyans, but I think we all come from some corner. And even as you help your country, you're also thinking about the county you come from, and you'll be more than happy to develop your county even as you reach out to helping neighboring counties. Honorable Speaker, that is about sustainability of counties. I want to make a couple of other points and then yield the floor to other speakers. I would like to say that there is need for special measures to encourage investments by Kenyans in diaspora. Many of Kenyans have worked and succeeded abroad, but they retire into penury. Why? Because although their heart is in Kenya, there is no system to help them plan and save and invest in such a way that when they retire home, they find a livelihood in their old age. Some of them end up using relatives who squander their money because of lack of institutionalized way of handling those resources. In any case, investments should be dealt with as investments and not social support. So they can keep on sending money for social support to their relatives, but there must be a framework by county governments and national governments to encourage investments, and they should be treated. Kenyans in diaspora ought to be treated as any other investor is treated, Madam Speaker. I also want to say that the voting rights are critical for Kenyans in diaspora, and I agree with the Senior Counsel Okongo Mogeni when he said that the IEBC has just started piloting the issue of voting rights, and I think last election, Kenyans were able to vote in 2 polling stations in the United States of America and 1 polling station in South Africa, which actually makes a mockery of the whole process. Because if you set up in a large country like USA, which has a span of a 6-hour time difference from east to west, from the East Coast to West Coast, and then you have 2 polling stations, one in Washington, D.C., another one in Los Angeles, then that can only be looked at as just an experiment or a pilot, but it's not. You cannot claim that you have enabled people, Kenyans in America, to vote. The same way South Africa is a large country, Madam Speaker, right from the border with Swaziland and Zimbabwe, all the way to where the Atlantic meets the Indian Ocean, in the Cape Point. It's a large country. So when you set up one polling center in Pretoria, It's impossible for someone to drive from Stellenbosch or from Cape Town 2,300 kilometers to come to Pretoria to vote in the north. Madam Speaker, therefore, there is need to streamline voting rights as we go into 2022 elections. There is need for establishing more missions. We don't have enough missions abroad. And Kenya needs to move into opening new places, new missions, new frontiers, which means new opportunities for Kenyans living abroad, so that we don't just deal with the traditional places, America, Britain, Germany. We have places, especially small nation, island nations, which are in need of services. Madam Speaker, maybe as I end, I can say this from my personal experience, that before I joined politics, I was an academic, just like you, Honorable Speaker. I was an academic, and I was privileged to have traveled to nearly 100 countries in 12 years, because I was a very vibrant academic. And I engaged with so many Kenyans. And one of my thrills was to meet Kenyans in one of the remotest places on earth, where you don't expect that you can find a Kenyan. And they will narrate, when we had dinner, if I'm going for a conference or a workshop, we have dinner, and you hear Kenyans in Venezuela telling you the opportunities in this country, in this sector, in this sector, in this sector are immense. So what am I saying, Honorable Speaker? I am saying that we must move from the traditional markets where Kenyans in diaspora have been facilitated, America and maybe Western Europe, and move into new frontiers, especially island nations and very remote countries where the demand for specialized services, including teaching services. I was in a small island called Mayotte, which is in the Indian Ocean, not too far from Seychelles. And this is a French territory. It's a French overseas territory, a small country. It's a French-speaking country. The demand for English-speaking teachers in that island is just immense, and we have an oversupply of teachers at all levels in this country. So we should start thinking of new places, new frontiers, new parts of the world, and open embassies there, and also facilitate Kenyans who find their way there so that they can play a meaningful role in the development of their nation. And as I end, 2 points. One is what should determine, as IBC and other agencies try to reach out to Kenyans abroad, what should determine, as the bill suggests, what should determine the level of engagement and facilitation is the size of the country, the geographical size of the country, and secondly also the number of residents that reside in that particular country. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that no country can develop from homogeneous set of skills, indigenous set of skills. And the best example is Dubai. Today, Dubai and the United Arab Emirates was nothing in the early 1970s. It was just desert. Today, if you walk in the streets of Dubai, you will, unless you're told, you'll think you're in New York or in Berlin, All the big companies of the world are located there, all the tech giants from all over the world. And I was shocked to learn that there are 186 nationalities living in the Emirate of Dubai. 186. That is like the entire United Nations, resident in a country which 35, 40 years ago was totally desert. So let us invest in diversity, and we also encourage foreigners to come and work in Kenya and invest, and that is the way we'll integrate the world. And the days of xenophobia and border controls and building walls and separating people, that era is gone. To all Kenyans who are abroad for work, for whatever reason, we salute you, we will support you, feel part of this country, and let us develop legislation and other policy interventions like this bill to match our talk with action and ensure that our colleagues out there feel part and parcel of their own country. Senator Kenyatta, I salute you. I support Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Professor. Thank you for that great link between heterogeneity and development. I think many people don't notice that a lot, and those examples that you've given us, and needing to treat those in the diaspora as assets. Next, we have Senator Were.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support the bill, the Kenyan Citizenship and Immigration Amendment Bill 2021, ably sponsored by my good friend, Senator Kenyatta, who walks the talk. I'm sure he went somewhere, observed the problems our Kenyans were going through abroad, and came back with a solution. Congratulations, Senator Kenyatta. Madam Speaker, this bill is providing a framework by which Kenyans abroad can use to participate in the socio-economic activities of their country. Mr. Speaker, the amendment also seeks some protection of these interests of Kenyans who are living abroad, and not only just Kenyans who are living abroad who have gone there to work or to look for jobs, but even employees of Kenyan in the Kenyan embassies. Madam Speaker, we had an opportunity to visit Botswana under the Commonwealth Parliamentarians Association. And Madam Speaker, when we visited the embassy, it was scarcely staffed. We met Kenyans who live in Botswana, very many professionals, Madam Speaker, who live in Botswana, who have built that country. All the construction of roads, construction of schools, construction of hotels has been done or spearheaded by Kenyan engineers. But they have no way of paying back or participating as well, providing that knowledge back to our country. So that participation in the economic well-being of our country, we need a framework through which they can participate. They also make quite a number of remittances to this country in billions. Madam Speaker, where you have put your money is where your mouth should be. So if they are putting more money in the economy of this country, every day earning us foreign exchange, which is important for the calculation of our GDP, we must be able to provide a framework through which they can also participate. Because we like saying that nothing for us without us. So therefore, Madam Speaker, if we want to enjoy their money, we should also be able to allow them to enjoy the services or their rights that they are entitled to according to our Constitution. Our Constitution also provides for double or dual citizenship. Therefore, even some who are citizens in other countries, they have rights as Kenyan citizens to enjoy the rights that are due to them as outlined in our Constitution. Madam Speaker, for a long time we used to complain about brain drain, that our best has gone abroad, has been poached. Some of the people who have produced even vaccines have come from Africa in general. Even the vaccine for COVID was developed by an African. That is brain drain. We cannot allow them to just develop whatever they're developing outside there and keep it. We need to find a way of bringing them back so that they can participate fully, socially, economically, and even politically. Our Constitution now allows them to vote, to participate in the governance of their country. IBC tried 2013, they were not able to fully do it well. 2017, it was only done in a few embassies or high commissions. We want it to be open and available for all Kenyans abroad who are over 18 to vote and participate in the governance of their country. The Constitution also grants them the right to good health, good education, and even good sanitation. Our young people, especially who go to look for jobs, low-skilled or non-skilled labor abroad, especially in the Gulf region, how are we protecting them, even as they are in that country? They are still the responsibility of Kenya to protect them. So, Madam Speaker, I support this bill. It is coming at the right time. Kenyans who are outside there, who their passports expire, the kind of frustration they go through to have those passports renewed. How are we making it easy in provision of public service to those Kenyans who are abroad? This bill provides that framework. It encompasses all these issues and meets the interests of Kenyans who are abroad. I thank you, Senator Kenyatta, and the team that came up with this bill, and we look forward to it passing so that it can start applying fully. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Were and that need for frameworks well emphasized. I see no other senator wishing to contribute. I therefore call upon the mover to reply. Senator Kenyatta.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for affording me that opportunity to respond. Let me start by thanking various senators who have contributed to this bill. Thank you to the Senator for Nandi, Cherarki, for seconding this bill. Senator Dr. Agnes Zani, thank you for that very good contribution. Senator Johnson Sakaja, thank you so much for that very well taken exposition. Senator Eric Okongo Omogeni, thank you, Senator Christopher Lagat. Professor Kidure Kindiki, thank you so much. And also my friend, Senator Were. And therefore, I take that opportunity. I have listened to each and every contributor. I have taken notes to all your points, and I'm so humbled. And this is not a win for myself, no. It's a win for all Kenyans who live abroad once this bill becomes law. It's also a win for Parliament, to the extent that Parliament invests a lot of money to send senators to do a lot of things outside, to benchmark, to learn. And I think once we go there, we must always ask ourselves, what are the problems are we finding Kenyans living abroad facing? What solution can we come back and offer to them? That is how the taxpayer who funds our trips gets value. Otherwise, it will be like a tour. But to the extent that we go out there, we find problems, then we come back here, we come up with legislative intervention. I think that's how we make value to those trips, and also we ensure Kenya become a progressive society. Let me also echo what Professor Kindiki had just said, that Kenya must remain an open and liberal society. And I say this in the context of the so-called ongoing crackdown against the Pakistani, Madam Speaker. I think even as we travel outside, we must always appreciate the right called the notion of reciprocation. The way we would want us to be treated outside is the same way we should treat foreign national in Kenya. And therefore, I would urge the Interior Ministry not to do anything being inspired by a xenophobic, social media-driven hysteria. Remember, Pakistani remains the Kenya's most important tea importer. And knowing how tea is important to us, and therefore we must always thank Pakistanis for their continued support to our tea farmers. I've also had very good contribution concerning there's so many opportunities that exist in the world which Kenya is yet to leverage. Yes, it is true, Kenya has an oversupply of labor, and so many countries have undersupply of labor. Professor has talked about an island, an overseas territory of French called Mayotte. I've never been to that country, but yes, it is true. English is becoming a world lingua franca. So many countries want to learn English. And therefore, to that extent, nationalities who speak fluent English will still have a lot of opportunities to go out and teach people English language. And therefore, I think we need to pass this law so that that diaspora desk can look for opportunities of employment for Kenya outside, particularly in the area of English teaching. Madam Speaker, I regret that China recently banned private tutorship. And we all know that Kenyans were really into that sector in China. They were teaching Chinese children English. To that extent, I foresee some unemployment. I would urge we hurry up, we pass this bill. We may find other opportunities in other countries that are anglicizing. That is, they are slowly turning into an English-speaking country. Madam Speaker, I've also heard other senators talk about the importance of increasing our embassies overseas. Madam Speaker, you go to a place like Saudi Arabia, you find that mission serves countries in the adjoining region. We know that Saudi Arabia and those other countries neighboring Saudi Arabia, that's a new market that's been opened up. And to that extent, then, it makes sense for us to increase embassies in each and every Middle Eastern countries so that we ensure we protect the Kenyan citizenry who are in those countries. Madam Speaker, if this bill is passed, this problem of Kenyans being mistreated in the Arabia may be addressed, because we shall have a dedicated desk that is going to handle the issues concerning any human rights abuses that Kenyans may suffer anywhere in the world. Madam Speaker, as senators, we must always think about the young people who don't get jobs in Kenya. The millions of Kenyans who are graduating who don't get employment in this republic. I come from Murang'a County, and we thank that there has been a lot of investment in education. We have built so many schools. But once a person does Form 4, and we know the pass rate in Kenya in Form 4 is about 20 to 30%, the 70% of students who fail at KCSE, where do they go to? Yeah, even if they go to TVET, do they transit into formal employment? Madam Speaker, vast majority of that generation becomes unemployed. That is the generation you are going to Murang'a and you are finding they are into alcoholism because they have lost hope, Madam Speaker. They have nowhere else to go and get work through which they can marry, they can be married, they can create and establish a family, Madam Speaker. And therefore, such ideas of creating job opportunities for our young people outside Kenya is something that we need to embrace as a society. And this is what this bill is partly trying to address. When you take, for instance, Madam Speaker, 1,000 Kenyans, let's say, to America or to Britain, you take 3,000 Kenyans, you take them to European Union or to Australia. Madam Speaker, you will find their incomes shoot up the date they step their foot in those Western countries. And to that extent, you reduce poverty. You also make our skill set to expand because they go to those developed countries, they see how those countries operate. Maybe one day they'll come back and they are going to add value to this society of ours. Madam Speaker, my heart bleeds whenever I hear a graduate who does not have employment. My heart bleeds whenever I come across a very learned young person who was told by the teacher and the parent, read hard so that you get employment. But after toiling, primary school, high school, university, or college, that person fails to secure a single vacancy. And to that extent, we need to make it as a policy that the government must not only look for jobs here locally, but it must create a desk, as proposed by this bill, which can help young people to get employment out of Kenya, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, but once we take those young people outside there, we should not leave them to their own design. We create this desk as proposed by this bill, and we ensure if they are abused, they have a place where they can seek justice. If they are abused, if their human rights are violated, as a country, we have a mechanism through which we can ensure they can report to us. Madam Speaker, last time I checked Central Bank Kenya data on remittances, it was almost 200 billion Kenya shillings per annum. Madam Speaker, that is a lot of money that we must at least give back by creating a desk for our people in diaspora. I want to encourage the people in the diaspora who may be watching us today that we are with you. That is why we have brought this bill before this Honorable Senate. We want to ensure your rights are protected. We want to ensure the people you left back here in Kenya, they still care for you. The leaders that you left back here in Nairobi, they still care for you. That is why we have crafted this bill to ensure your rights are protected. It does not make sense for you to be traveling almost half a continent to seek a simple service of renewal of a passport, Madam Speaker. You expend millions of shillings trying to get a simple government service in a city called Washington, D.C., whereas you are based at the northwestern regions of America. Or you are in Canada, which is also another continent. You have to move thousands of kilometers to go to look for consular service. It does not make sense, Madam Speaker. Let us empower our diaspora community. Let us create this enabling law to support our diaspora community. I beg to move.
You beg to reply, and Senator, you want to add something else?
Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 61, Sabbatical 3, to request that you defer putting of the question on this motion to a later date.
Very well, Senator. The putting of the question is deferred to next week at one of the sessions. I wish to use Standing Order 1 to reorganize the order paper and request us to go back to Order number 10. Next order.
Order number 10, the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 15 of 2021, second reading.
Senator Halake, you are moving this bill and you have a balance of time, 30 minutes. Senator Halake.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you for using your chair to reorganize the order paper, and I thank you for giving me the chance. I will not take too long because the background to the Law of Succession Amendment Bill has already been set. So, Madam Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 15 of 2020, be read a second time. The bill is not a very long one, and as it seeks to address the issue of gender equity in succession matters, the bill in amending the Law of Succession Act seeks to ensure that the Act provides for gender equity with regards to succession matters, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Act is the Law of Succession Act, Cap 160, is the core applicable law in Kenya regarding issues of succession. The Succession Act provides the law for testate with a will and interstate succession without a will. The Act contains provisions that advance discrimination of women and therefore in the following ways. It exempts certain areas from application of the intestacy rules, leaving cases where one dies without a will to be subject to customary law, which in most cases is unfavorable to women. Madam Speaker, allow me to... Madam Speaker, in this case, what happens at these exemption areas of intestacy rules leaves cases where one dies with a will to be subjected to customary law, which is very unfavorable, as you know, and therefore we don't want a situation where law of succession is left to lower level legislation while the statute legislation discriminates against that. Again, as I said before, as I was laying the background and the policy concerns that occasioned this bill, is that there was disconnect between the law of succession bill, the core bill, and the Constitution of Kenya 2010, as well as other statute laws as well. It discriminates against widows in that what they lose, when they lose their life interest upon remarriage, while widowers do not. Again, it gives priority to fathers over mothers by expressly granting them precedence to inherit a deceased child's property whenever the intestate leaves no surviving spouse or children. And therefore, this law, while it has some good provisions, does actually discriminate against women and needs to be aligned to the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and other statute laws that are more dynamic and more aligned to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Also provides that in polygamous marriages, the husband inherits the full estate when each of his wives dies, but his net estate, when he dies, is divided among his surviving wives and children. And therefore, the bill at clause 6, 7, and 8 seeks to remedy this situation by giving parents an equal right to inherit the property of their deceased children where there's no surviving spouse or children, and making it clear that a spouse not only a widow is currently provided for, shall lose life interest in property upon remarriage, Madam Speaker. Although Kenyan laws guarantees inheritance rights to all by statute, discriminatory customary law still dominates in practice. Property grabbing by family members, although outlawed by the state, is common and affects widows, orphans, and disabled persons who often lack the ability to challenge these practices in court. Though the Law of Succession Act seems to give some sort of protection against intermeddling with the estate of a deceased person, what amounts to intermeddling is not very clear. It is for this reason that the bill at clause 2 proposes to define the term intermeddling as follows. Intermeddling means taking possession of, disposing of, or using the property of the deceased without the authority under this act or any other applicable law. Ejecting by force or by coercion a surviving spouse or child from the matrimonial home, or any unlawful dealing with the deceased person's estate. The bill also seeks to align the definition of terms such as marriage, spouse, and matrimonial property to other recent laws such as the Marriage Act 2014, the Matrimonial Property Act 2013, as these have an implication when it comes to dealing with the estate of spouses. Madam Speaker, Clause 3 of the bill seeks to remove former wives and husbands being maintained by a wife immediately prior to the death of the wife from the ambit of the term dependent. When it comes to succession matters, finally, Madam Speaker, Clause 4 of the bill seeks to align the Act to the Constitution by removing community land from the application of the law of succession. Madam Speaker, community land belongs to community. I come from Isiolo County, as you know, and we own our land as community land. So we should not have a situation where community land is put in succession laws of individuals and therefore intermeddling it and bringing confusion, because that land belongs to the community and not individuals that can pass it on to their spouses or their dependents. Therefore, I call upon senators to support this bill in order to give equal rights to our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our nieces, our aunties upon demise of relatives. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I would like to beg to move and invite Senator Were Lokorio to second this bill. I thank you.
Senator Were to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to second the bill, the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, ably again sponsored by Senator Bushiro Halake, who reminds us to move forward, who reminds us of the future and forget about the past. Madam Speaker, this bill was last done in 1981. 1981, Madam Speaker, that is before even the attempted coup of 1982. Several things have changed. Women have gone to school. Women have gotten jobs. There are things that need to change. From 1981 to now, there are certain things that need to change in the law of succession, in the area of succession, in the area of property ownership. This bill, Madam Speaker, deals mainly with the gender equity in succession matters. Mr. Speaker, the initial law, that is the law of succession of 1981, and I said this was before the attempted coup of 1982, so this is a very long time ago. Before, in the act, before now the amendment being brought by Senator Abshiro, widows and widowers were to lose their interest in an estate once they remarry. Madam Speaker, before then, it is the women who are to lose. Men were not losing. The amendment by Senator Abshiro says that they should include widowers as well. If the widows are losing their property when they remarry, or their interest in an estate when they remarry, it should apply to widowers as well. This bill, Madam Speaker, also excludes community land from the ambit of succession. Madam Speaker, we know that community land is communal. It's owned by the community. There are very many people in it. Therefore, the law as it is, the one for 1981, makes community land also available for succession matters. So the bill by Senator Abshiro seeks to exclude community land to avoid the many, many cases that drag on in court, cases related to land. And it's mainly because of issues like this, where community land is made to be a part of succession. And therefore it's taken to court, it drags on, and Madam Speaker, you know that land is a factor of production. If you have no access to land or a title, you cannot access loans. And land provides a guarantee for some of the loans with which you can use to develop yourself and develop your community. Madam Speaker, initially, in the law of succession of 1981, women were not even being allowed to make wills, to prepare wills, and were not even allowed to challenge one if it does not adequately provide for them. In this new law, Madam Speaker, we are providing an amendment so that now women are allowed to make a will, because now the Constitution 2010 has allowed women to inherit even land together with their brothers from their parents, and therefore, Madam Speaker, women now own property, and they should be allowed by law to make a will and challenge any other will if it does not adequately provide for them. Madam Speaker, the old law had a wife was to be ranked lower than the husband. A husband was always ranked high as the most suitable person to take charge of a deceased property. So when somebody dies, the person who is ranked highest, who is most suitable, considered most suitable to take charge, was the husband. But there was no provision for a wife. So the law of succession of 1981 really blindsided women, assumed women did not exist. Madam Speaker, we are now able to come to Parliament as women. These are things we cannot allow to continue applying, and then we go out there and say we are women who were once in Parliament. What did we do in Parliament to protect the interests of women? Because things are changing. Our daughters are being taken to the same schools our sons were being taken to. We are not just marrying them off. Why are we taking girls to school? We are taking them to school so that they can also make a life of themselves, so that they can also contribute to society. And as they contribute to society, the Constitution provides that there will be no discrimination of any sense, including sex or gender discrimination. So therefore, if they have the same rights as men, or as husbands, or as brothers in the Constitution, they should be able to enjoy that right. Madam Speaker, also in the old bill, children were allowed to inherit without without making any reference to a male child. That is the old act. Without making any reference to a female child. It only made reference to a male child. And it's specific, male child. Yet women, we give birth to both male and female. Even when you give birth to twins, you can give birth to twins, the same womb on the same day has produced a girl and a boy. Why would we provide a law of succession that only makes reference to a male child? This is discrimination against children, and especially children who are born out of wedlock. Those ones, the old law did not consider them. And if you are a female child, the worse it is for you. Madam Speaker, as I indicated earlier, in the old law, widows would lose the right when they remarry. But the same was not passed on to widowers. How crazy is that? That if a wife dies and the man remarries, and that wife had property, the man does not lose the right or the interest in that property. Yet he has remarried. But a wife who remarries loses interest in her deceased husband's property. Madam Speaker, that is not acceptable in the new era. We have heard that the Constitution 2010 prohibits laws, including customary laws, that violate the Constitution. Madam Speaker, FGM is one of those customary laws that violate the Constitution, that is illegal. There's no difference with the law on succession, especially discrimination of any kind. It is not allowed in the new Constitution of 2010. Madam Speaker, the amendment that has been brought by this bill also provides for the participation of county governments. Madam Speaker, land is emotive. We have the chiefs, the lowest level, the headmen. Now we have ward administrators, village administrators, who understand the history of some of these land disputes, some of the succession disputes that drag on. By bringing on board the county governments to deal with some of these issues, we will reduce these disputes and enable our people access land and all the benefits that are related to land. This bill, therefore, Madam Speaker, proposes for the creation of awareness on the provisions of the law on succession so that members of the public are informed of the options available to them in law. And this bill also mandates counties to make sure that they hold regular clinics, awareness campaigns, to make sure that people know that there's a law like this that exists and they have rights that from which they are protected from harmful customary practices. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I second.
Thank you very much, Dr. Were. Senator Were, that's a blessing. Order, senators. I propose the question that the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 15 of 2021, be read a second time. Senator Kenyatta.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill, but also I'm so glad that this bill has been brought before this House by the Honorable Senator Halake, and for several reasons. Number one, Madam Speaker, I have been carrying out some seminars in Murang'a County to teach the law of succession to mainly the clergy. And we have dealt with these issues on a day-to-day basis. Madam Speaker, I recall the last week, I think it was on Wednesday or so, I was with the PCA, Women Guild at Maganjo, Kamahoha, that is Maragua constituency. I was in Mothers Union in Murang'a town, the entire Murang'a North ACK Mothers Union. I was teaching them this law of succession. Then I went to, I recall I was in Keno Cathedral of Anglican Church, Murang'a South, led by Bishop Karano. Again, this was the topic. I also had the opportunity to teach law of succession to the women at Kiriaini in Murang'a North, Mathioya constituency at ACK, again, Anglican Church. And this was a topic where I was trying to teach Murang'a people, particularly the clergy, salient features of law of succession. And the reason I did that, Madam Speaker, is an appreciation that Murang'a, I think almost 95% of Murang'a land is titled. And therefore, we have a lot of intra and inter-family disputes arising out of the law of succession. And therefore, I feel if our people were to understand the various features of law of succession, we can reduce intra-family disputes on matters land. And to that extent, I'm very happy that somehow this bill has been brought before us so that we can improve on this bill. I agree with the mover. This bill was passed way back in 1981. That is about 40 years ago. Yeah, that is when the primary statute was enacted into law by the National Assembly. There has been a lot of changes, Madam Speaker, over the years. Yeah, Madam Speaker, 1981, the constitution that was prevailing then was the 1969 constitution. Now we have a brand new constitution called 2010 Constitution of Kenya. It has introduced a raft of new ideas, a raft of new notions. And therefore, once you enact a constitution, you introduce new principles. It means then you have to review statutes, which we did, Madam Speaker. We introduced a new land law. Remember the Land Act that collapsed the various pieces of legislations on land that were existing then, like Government Lands Act, Registered Lands Act, RLA, Registration of Titles Act. They were all collapsed into one piece of legislation. But, Madam Speaker, we forgot as a country to review the law of succession. And to that extent, I'm glad that this is the first attempt for us to modernize the law of succession, Madam Speaker. We shall all die, and therefore we shall all be subject to the law of succession. And therefore, to that extent, I would imagine this is a life. It's something that touches on every Kenyan out there. Madam Speaker, when a person dies, in terms of the process, the law of succession sets out the process that one has to undertake before this process is finalized. You have to take a chief's letter, an introductory letter from the chief, a copy of the death certificate. You have to annex what we call documents that prove ownership of those property in issue, whether such, if it's land, copy of the share certificate. You have to annex a copy of the logbook. And then you start now, you lodge, you go to Kenya Gazette, letters of administration, then you go to confirmation of grant. I think maybe I would urge my sister, look at that process, see how we can improve on it. Yeah, because when you look at this act, it only touches on the substantive provisions of the law of succession. I think that there are many areas a good practicing lawyer can advise on how we can improve on matters procedure. Yeah, that procedure. We make it a little bit easier, we make it a little bit more affordable so that matters succession, they don't stay for long, they don't stick for long in court.
Order, Senators. Senator Kangata, you have a balance of 13 minutes when this order comes again in the order paper. Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30, time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 5th October 2021 at 2:30 p.m.